How do you become more intelligent? You can't really become more intelligent. Intelligence is a predestined factor based on a lot of things when you are very young. I would equate it to a multiplier you could add to things like rate of learning, applying concepts, decision-making, and occasionally memorization. Being more intelligent makes a lot of things easier, just like how being larger makes reaching for things easier or stronger makes lifting heavy things easier. However, you can definitely become smarter and wiser. Applying an attitude of learning, being humble, slow to judge, and an analytic perspective can all contribute meaningfully to becoming smarter. Broadening perspectives through research, travel, and academic study are all solid methods to become smarter as well. Wisdom comes with accumulation of knowledge and experiences over time. TLDR, anyone can become smarter, but your intelligence role is likely determined at birth.
This really hits home. I've seen friends who are naturally smart but don't put in the effort, and then others who aren't as quick but work hard and end up knowing a lot more. It's interesting how some people just get life lessons over time, making them wiser. I think it's a mix of learning from experiences and staying open to new ideas that really helps us grow.
Pushing your limits. Whatever is at the edge of your mental ability, the edge of a discipline that is hard for you is an area of growth. Math analysis, creative writing, memorization, mechanical design, software debugging, whatever. Intelligent isn't just one axis. It's like a billion. What do you want to be smarter at? Push the edges of that.
I remember a time when I struggled with math. I kept pushing myself to tackle harder problems, even when it felt impossible. Slowly, I started to get the hang of it. This sense of progress was rewarding. It taught me that growing in any discipline takes time and effort. Just finding those limits can feel frustrating, but it's where real growth happens. We all have our strengths. It's about refining them.
Intelligence is the capacity to learn, to understand, to divine, and reason. The key word is capacity. Like computers, human minds have a capacity, a limit to its ability. Some have higher limits than others. It is not something you can improve, only learn how to use more effectively. You can become smarter, more learned, store more information. But you cannot increase your capacity. That is what people like Edison, Tesla, Isaac Newton, and Da Vinci stand out. They had superior intelligence. They had a natural talent to see things that the average person can't. We simple folks can learn what they discovered and retain that knowledge, but high intelligence is a gift.
I get the idea. Intelligence has limits, and while we can learn and gather knowledge, some people just have that natural edge. It's interesting to think about how historical figures like Tesla or Newton had minds that saw beyond what most could. We can all appreciate their contributions, but it's clear they operated on a different level. Makes you wonder how much untapped potential is out there.
Do the hard things if you are doing something, and there's a problem. Don't avoid the problem, solve it. Ask questions. Don't ever tell yourself you can't. Sometimes you have to think, this way takes longer, but I'll learn more. Randomly look for things to improve in the world and think of ways to do it. Look at the details of things. And ask why somebody designed it. That way you see an item on a menu that you can't pronounce. Ask the waiter how to pronounce it, and then eat it.
I had a friend who always tackled challenges head-on. He'd see a hard problem and dive right in, never backing down. Once, we were at a restaurant, and he ordered something complicated. Instead of skipping it, he asked the waiter how to say it properly. It turned out to be amazing. He taught me to embrace tough situations and learn from them, reminding me that there's always something to gain from sticking it out.
Gonna be the devil's advocate, but learning is more important than reading. The reason why reading is important is because there's a lot to take away from books. Lessons, history, different opinions, and there's a certain mental challenge in understanding what's between the lines. And I'm not downplaying how important that is. I think that's more in line with wisdom. It's a form of intelligence, but I don't think that's what you're asking for. In terms of raw intellect, you need to go learn new skills. Challenge your mind at understanding how and why things work the way they do. After a while, your mind starts pulling on different pools of knowledge to understand new abstract and foreign concepts.
I get what you mean. I have a friend who's all about hands-on learning. He doesn't read much, but he's always fixing stuff and figuring out how things work. When we hung out, he'd take apart old electronics just to see what was inside. It amazed me how much he understood without flipping through pages. I think there's definitely something to be said for practical experience over just reading.
The same as anything, practice. What does intelligence mean to you? Do you want more knowledge? Have more skills? Be better at the skills you already have? Want to be able to think faster? Be able to think more deeply? Have better memory? Pick which things you want to be better at and practice.
I remember trying to pick up guitar. At first, my fingers didn't cooperate, and I couldn't keep a rhythm. But I kept at it, practicing daily. Over time, things started clicking. I wasn't a prodigy, just someone who decided to put in the work. It made me realize that whatever I wanted to improve in life, practice was the simple answer. It's all about putting in the time, really.
I differentiate intelligence from learning. There are also different types of intelligence. I, for one, have trouble retaining information. So thick in terms of myself is not being intelligent. I definitely think a different way, however, and have been a successful engineer. I'm very good at taking desperate information and using it to solve other problems. I'm actually quite hampered by my ADD. I hold several patterns, and even though I've had at least 7 semesters of chemistry, I still can't remember the Krebs cycle from biology.
It's interesting how intelligence can vary from person to person. I get the struggle with retaining information, too. I know a guy who aced all his tests but still couldn't solve practical problems like changing a tire. Sometimes, being book smart doesn't equate to real-world skills. It's all about finding one's strengths and working with them. ADD can make things tricky, but it sounds like you've found a way to make it work in engineering.
Time management, and actually talking about the things that you have learned with the people around you. Obviously, we all know that reading/watching stuff to gain more knowledge is how you get more intelligence. But actually being able to retain that information, unless you have a photographic memory, is done by communicating it with others to some degree. And then time management. You have the strongest tool in human history in your pocket at all waking hours of the day. Use it to always be learning.
I remember once chatting with a friend about a book I read. It helped me understand the concept better, and I realized that sharing what I learned made it stick. It got me thinking about how much time we waste scrolling instead of learning. I started setting aside time each day to read or watch something enlightening. It changed my perspective a bit. Just talking about what you learn can make a difference.
Probably the biggest barrier to people being smart is their willingness to sit down and parse through their work in a really slow and methodical manner. If you just accept that it's going to take you like 3 days to learn, let's say, the quadratic equation, you'll actually learn the quadratic equation. Most people just get impatient and quit. For context, I went to a top 10 university for engineering. If you give up on learning something in less time than it takes for me to learn something, is the issue really intelligence here?
I get what you're saying. I had a friend who struggled with math but decided to stick with it. He spent nights working through problems, not rushing. Over time, he got it. His patience made all the difference. A lot of folks just want quick answers. It's about the effort, not just the outcome. In the end, it's about how much you're willing to put in.
One thing to keep in mind with getting better at anything is to give yourself grace and not get frustrated. The more stress you experience, the more distracted you become, and the less intelligent you can seem. You can imagine how this can become a feedback loop if you feel self-conscious about your intelligence. Accept that you don't have 100% control over this, and focus on accepting your life as is and making positive changes incrementally. Other than that, intelligence is a magic trick. It's trivia, communication skills, emotional awareness, and problem solving. I think practicing good communication skills should be the focus, as that will probably give you the most immediate results in terms of other people's perception.
I remember when a friend of mine was struggling with their studies. They always stressed about grades and felt dumb. I told them to chill and take it one step at a time. We worked on communicating ideas better. Over time, they became more confident and saw improvements. It was cool to watch them realize that it wasn't just about intelligence, but how they expressed themselves and handled stress.
At its core, intelligence is an intersection of personality traits: openness, curiosity, and cognitive flexibility and adaptability. It's really hard to be dumb if you're naturally curious, ask a lot of questions, and are open to challenging whatever you do know by getting more and more information. This is what drives what other people point to as book reading or learning different subjects. Intelligence isn't really a thing you can get or keep. More so, a set of consistent behaviors that keep you open and curious and consistently engaged with new information, but also being flexible enough to use this information in real time and also discarding information that is either not useful or incorrect.
I've seen this in a friend who's always asking questions. He can't help himself. He dives deep into various topics and never sticks to one thing. If he learns something new, he reshapes his thinking around it. It's like he knows that staying curious keeps him sharp. He doesn't just memorize facts, he thinks about how they fit into what he already understands. It's an interesting way to see intelligence in action.
Sleep well, eat well, take care of yourself, exercise, and surround yourself with people that challenge you to think outside of your bubble. Read a lot. If you find yourself drifting off, find something else to read. Admit when you're uneducated on a subject and think critically about it. And listen and absorb knowledge from others who know more. If you disagree, ask yourself why. Explore that. Use your brain. Eventually, you start teaching yourself by using what others have learned and adding your own brain into the mix.
That's solid advice. I've had friends who really push me to think differently. Like this one guy who reads everything and isn't shy about sharing his views. At first, it was challenging, but it made me question my own beliefs. I started finding books that I would have never picked up before. It's a good way to grow and see things from new angles. Makes you appreciate knowledge a lot more.
Explore math. I used to hate math in high school. Then a friend was able to break down algebra and trig in a way that I was able to understand and showed all the neat ways it was used in real life by engineers. When I got to college, I had to start from square one and work my way up to pre-calc, and that journey was one of the most eye-opening experiences ever. I began to see existence in relation to math, where I can look at one situation and understand that it is the same as another situation except it is expressed in a different way. Like how 9 plus 9 can be expressed as 18, or 9 by 2, or 10 plus 8, or 6 by 3. They're all the same exact thing, just expressed differently. That was when I finally began to understand that math is just a language that we use to express ideas, the same way we use any other language. This new understanding completely changed the way I viewed the world, and it allowed me to understand that perspectives outside my own exist, which fostered a drive to seek out and understand those perspectives.
I used to feel the same way about math. It felt pointless until a buddy of mine explained some concepts in a really straightforward way. Seeing how math connects to real life made it click for me. In college, I approached it all fresh, and it opened my eyes. Realizing that different expressions can mean the same thing changed my perspective on everything, not just math. It's all about understanding different viewpoints.
So, fluid intelligence, the ability to solve completely new problems using logic and reasoning. is more or less fixed by the time you're an adult. Might be fixed even before that, not sure. Crystallized intelligence is the ability to use existing knowledge to solve related problems, and is absolutely not fixed. You can see from that brief description that you can improve it by knowing more. So, learn all you can. Read books. Read Scientific American. Learn to program. Learn software. Take online courses. And you'll be able to solve a lot more problems than you were able to before.
That's an interesting take on intelligence. I think I agree. I remember a friend who didn't do well in school but started learning coding later in life. He picked it up quickly and ended up landing a great job. It shows that knowledge really can change how you approach problems. Just goes to show, it's never too late to learn something new.
I always figured that intelligence is the ability to parse and apply knowledge. So, to me, the first step is to acquire more knowledge. The second would be to practice applying said knowledge in real-world problems, parsing and applying it. Over time, I'd get better at recognizing patterns and quickly applying solutions, appearing to raise my intelligence in a specific, narrowly defined field. But that's not increased intelligence. That's wisdom. So now, I don't think you can raise intelligence. It's a flat modifier that applies to the conversion of knowledge to wisdom.
Your take on intelligence and wisdom is interesting. It's true that acquiring knowledge is just the start. Applying it in real situations is where it gets real. Over time, you learn to recognize patterns, and that's where wisdom comes in. It's like leveling up in a game. You don't really change your intelligence, just how you use it. That's a solid way to think about personal growth.
Let yourself be intellectually challenged and fail. Just like hotting gym and lifting weights to gain strength, you are supposed to fail at times. That is part of growth. People are so afraid of being judged as stupid. Get rid of this foolish fear. Go and learn how to write a basic calculator program in Python.
I remember when I first tried coding. I thought I could handle it, but my code just wouldn't run. It was frustrating. I felt dumb, but I kept at it. Each failure taught me something new, and eventually, I got it to work. It's true, failing is just part of the learning process. You have to embrace that if you want to grow. Just keep pushing through.
Solve problems. Learn how things work. Remove emotions. Care more about what's correct instead of what you want to be correct. Be more patient and think deeper and look for reasons why you're wrong. Don't assume things are true. If you listen to the average person speak, they are so careless with accuracy and so defensive. The epitome of low intelligence is being close-minded MO. You need to be able to listen to everyone and know how to filter out the garbage. People are ridiculously confident and use absolutes while being completely wrong, and it could be someone more successful than you who should know better. Also, I think I would know people as far as raw intelligence, like articulation, mental math. I think your genetics are your genetics.
It's interesting how much people rely on their own opinions without checking the facts. I've seen friends get caught up in their beliefs, thinking they have it all figured out. It's like they don't realize there's always more to learn. I've had to step back sometimes, listen more, and really consider different perspectives. You can't just shut down when someone challenges your views, even if it feels uncomfortable.
To echo everyone else here, the answer is to read more and read widely. But if I can build on that commentary, you should also read things that are challenging or that have complex themes. The kinds of books literature students would be given as homework because they lend themselves to endless analyses. Pick up a Cormac McCarthy book and have a thesaurus handy on your phone.
I remember a time when a friend of mine decided to tackle Blood Meridian. He thought it would be easy, but it turned out to be a real challenge. We spent weeks discussing the themes and symbolism. It felt like a college course for us. He ended up loving it, though it definitely pushed him to think in new ways. Sometimes, those tough reads are what really stick with you.
Intelligence comes in two forms. One, naturally gifted. Two, by practice. Now, not a lot of people are born intelligent. Most people became intelligent by sheer hard work and a lot of changes in their perspective. For instance, I'm a naturally smart guy, although a lot of smart people I know were not naturally smart from the start. They struggled and they studied really hard. They changed their habit and perspective to reach it, but yeah, curiosity and the appetite of feeding your curiosity is the best method. Well, at least for me. Ick for you, but have that trait.
It's interesting how intelligence varies. Some people just have a knack for it, while others really grind to get there. I know a few folks who weren't the brightest in school but later turned into experts in their fields. They just kept pushing themselves. Curiosity definitely plays a big role. It's like a drive that keeps you wanting to learn more. For me, staying curious has helped a lot too.
Many have started reading. While reading is correct, only reading won't help. You have to understand what you're reading. And reading isn't the only way. There are many videos and podcasts out there which are very informative, such as Vsauce, 3B1B, Veritasium, Nylerd, etc. Intelligence doesn't just come to you suddenly. It is a long process of learning. It can take years or even decades to consider a person intelligent. Most people called intelligent have known to be curious from a young age, leading them to learn and learn. Not to sound arrogant, but I'm considered intelligent among my friends. And I'm only 16. My intelligence comes from my passion for electronics, science, maths, etc. Intelligence isn't knowing everything. It can even mean being knowledgeable in a specific area.
I get what you mean. It's not just about reading, you have to dive deeper. It's like my friend who got into coding. He didn't just read books, he watched tutorials, joined forums, and practiced a lot. Over time, he became really skilled. Intelligence is definitely a journey, not a destination. For me, I've always been drawn to tech stuff. It's cool how passion drives learning, right?
First thing is, some people make connections faster than others. It can be discouraging, but it just means you have to work many times harder than some people to acquire the same enlightenment. Be stubborn AF. Do not give up. As to how you become more intelligent, you learn, read, observe others, listen, question everything, silently if possible, politely when dialogue is necessary. Put your emotions aside if you are able. Formal education does one thing that isn't immediately obvious. It teaches you through specific methodologies and through the adversity you experience when faced with complicated problems and issues. How to learn. I have a friend who decided to forego education after high school. He was never stupid. However, he has a severe tendency to favor simple and often incorrect explanations to really complex issues, and it's held him back.
I had a friend who thought skipping college would save him time. He's smart but tends to stick to easy answers, which really limits him. We used to chat about complicated topics, and he'd quickly brush them off. But watching him struggle with deeper concepts was tough. Sometimes, the effort to understand things on a deeper level is what makes all the difference. It's a reminder that learning is a lifelong process.
I am no neurologist or anything, but I think intelligence sort of peaks in your late 20s. Then your brain starts to shrink. Before that time is the best time to be learning and packing stuff in there. It is much harder after, but not impossible. Things like new languages, advanced mathematics, etc., much easier before your mid-20s. However, there is some overlap with wisdom, which pretty much the opposite of intelligence you typically gain as you age. This usually entails things like historical facts, events, social norms or rules / laws, and of course just life experiences. In both scenarios, spending time researching, reading, having a curious mind helps. So in short, to increase your intelligence and / or your wisdom, you need a curious and motivated mind. A touch of ADHD helps too. Read a one-line headline on a topic. Go and read the article and Google a bit on the topic before commenting. Try to understand objectively rather than go in emotionally.
I can relate to that. I remember a friend who was really into learning languages. He picked up Spanish and French effortlessly in his early 20s. After that, he struggled with Japanese. It just wasn't clicking for him like the others. It's interesting how wisdom and intelligence play out differently over time. He became a lot wiser though, sharing insights on life that helped me more than any textbook ever could.
You don't become more intelligent by reading. You become more educated if you don't read crap. The correct question would be, how can I maximize the outcomes of what my brain can perform? Unfortunately, it's usually a positive feedback loop where people with high IQ are more interested in things that make them perform better, which makes them even more interested in those things, and so on. Reels on TikTok is an excellent way to break that circle.
That makes sense. I remember a friend who loved to learn but got stuck in a loop of reading without applying it. He realized he needed to take action, not just consume information. He started exploring new hobbies, which helped him learn in a different way. Sometimes stepping away from books and engaging with the world is the best way to grow. Balancing reading with real experiences can make a difference.
Being able to parse through books or anything really for knowledge without having to read everything is to me a sign of intelligence. What it takes to get there may involve reading books though. Learning to speed read, skim, and being multidisciplinary will make things even faster and more natural.
I had a friend who was a speed reader. He would finish books in half the time it took me. It was impressive to see him flip through pages, just catching the key points. He always found unique connections between topics too. I tried to learn speed reading once, but it didn't click for me. Still, I respect the skill. Makes you think about how much we can absorb if we find the right methods.
I agree with reading, and it's a skill everyone should practice. But for those who find they can't read for hours a day, let me shift this. Be curious. If you're more of an audio listener kind of person and prefer audiobooks or educational podcasts, great. If that's watching YouTube tutorials or long-form educational content, awesome. If it's asking ChatGPT about topics in voice mode and having a verbal discussion, great. If you're more of a physical, in-person learner and prefer to take some intro classes to something sick, but be curious.
I get that not everyone can or wants to read all the time. I have a friend who loves podcasts and learns a lot from them. He finds it easier to absorb info that way. Whether it's about history or tech, he always seems to be diving into something interesting. It's cool to see how curiosity drives different people. There's no one way to learn, and that's alright.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.